20 player prices have been revealed today by FPL, including Erling Haaland and Mo Salah. And in this video, I'm going to take you through them all. First up then, we've got some position changes for Kai Havertz and Richarlison. Both players were obviously midfielders in the game last season, but have been transferred across to be forwards now. Havertz priced at 8 million and Richarlison at 7. I gotta say, I'm a little bit pessimistic as to whether these two players are worth buying. Arsenal personally feel they need to sign a number 9 to really challenge Man City for a Premier League title. Will Kai Havertz continue playing as the number 9, or will he start every game in the Premier League next season playing as the number 9? I'm not too sure. I think, he's proven that he can play both in the centre of the park and up front for Arsenal, and I think that will continue to change throughout next season. So a player that plays in both of those positions, I don't really think you can justify buying him as an 8 million forward. But Richarlison, though, at 7 million, it's quite a promising prospect at that price, especially considering Tottenham's first fixture is Leicester away. Leicester, in my mind, are not the best team defensively. They got relegated from the Premier League, in my mind, a couple of seasons ago because of their poor defence. So that could be a really strong fixture first up for Tottenham, especially with Richarlison being priced at 7 million. FPL revealed 3 defender prices altogether. So we've got 3 budget defenders from the promoted teams. Now, my favourite of this lot is Taylor Harwood-Bellis. Now, do I think Southampton are going to pull up trees this season? Absolutely not. They've got Newcastle away as their first fixture, which is, almost as tough as you can ask for. But at 4 million, Taylor Harwood-Bellis started 43 of 46 games in the Championship last season. So suggests to me he's nailed on to start for Southampton. And I think most years we've all found a 4 million defender that's absolutely nailed on to start, and they've become a really critical part of our teams. Famously, they come in with really good cameo appearances as well. When you actually need them to perform, somehow they usually pull out the points. And Taylor Harwood-Bellis feels like one of those players. Ultimately, he's going to spend most of the season as second or third on your bench. But at 4 million for a player that's likely to start every game, he's obviously a great deal. Leif Davies of Ipswich, he was the most, in my mind, and statistically, probably the most attacking defender in the Championship last season. Basically, I would say an Alfie Doughty regen. 4.5 million is really, really good value for him. And then you've got Ricardo Pereira of Leicester City, I would say, their first choice starting right back. But across his career, he has been extremely injury prone, and that was proven in the Championship last year as well. Do I think it's worth going for him? I would say Leif Davies and Taylor Harwood-Bellis are probably better than Ricardo Pereira. I expect Davies to get more attacking returns, and Harwood-Bellis saves you 0.5 million. And Leicester defensively, they're probably slightly stronger, maybe, than Ipswich and Southampton, but I don't back them to keep that many clean sheets. So those are my thoughts on the budget defenders. Now, we do have 3 really exciting 6.5 million mids, and I'm particularly looking at Christopher Nkunku, who we didn't really get a proper look at for Chelsea last season. He comes to them with such a great track record in his previous club. So he should be fit to start the season, and I imagine surely he's got to be starting for Chelsea if he's fit and done a full pre-season. I think 6.5 million is fantastic value for him. One thing to say, it applies to the other players on this list, Solly March and Neto too. He's not going to be on penalties for Chelsea, right? That obviously falls to Cole Palmer. But I think regardless, 6.5 million for a player of the calibre of Nkunku is great value. Solly March comes in at the same price he did last year, 6.5 million. The one kind of doubt I'd have around him, it's obviously a new manager in place of De Zerbi. There was so much rotation in that Brighton front line last season, and they have so many options that can play in those positions. With Dingra, Mitoma, March, João Pedro, the list goes on, right, in terms of available options they have to play in those positions. So for me, I can't be totally sure that Solly March is going to play. Pedro Neto, however, if he stays at Wolves across this summer, I do think there's a genuine threat of him leaving with just how good of a player he is and, the kind of price tag he can attract. 6.5 million is a great price for Neto. Famously came in at the start of last season. It was really popular at 5.5 million. He's gone up by a whole million, but I still think he's great value at 6.5. I'd actually say Nkunku and Neto, regardless of other player prices that we're going to look at, I'd say they're perfectly pickable options in your team at their price. Couple of 5 million goalkeepers up next. Jordan Pickford, who was the top scoring goalkeeper in the game last season, kept a good bunch of clean sheets and made a lot of saves. And Bernd Leno ticks that box as well. Although I would be a little bit worried about that Fulham defence without Tosin in it. I think without him, they're going to concede a fair few more goals than they did last season. So for me, I'd say Pickford's probably the stronger of the two of them. However, I'd wait and see, because there are a couple of goalkeepers that I have my eye on that aren't these two. Onana of Man United. If Man United go ahead with the signings of De Ligt and maybe Ugarte in their midfield as well, I expect Onana to come in at 5 million. I think with those defenders and midfielders in front of him, he's probably going to be better than Pickford and Leno. And as well as that, with Ederson looked to make a move to Saudi Arabia, I've heard the club in question are offering 1 million per week at the moment, right? Ortega could well be the starting goalkeeper for Man City at the start of the season. We haven't seen his price yet, but he could turn out to be a real bargain. So yes, both these keepers, perfectly decent options, but I've got my eye on Onana and Ortega. A couple of 7.5 million forwards next then, and I must say I'm a little bit disappointed by Mateta's price here. I made a video predicting players that should be good buys in FPL this season. And I was expecting Mateta to be just a little bit cheaper than that. But with his 9 goals in 6 games towards the back end of the season, I think it was almost impossible for FPL not to put his price up by quite a bit. The thing that would put me off with Mateta compared to Tony is that he doesn't take penalties. Whereas Tony, nailed on, 90-minute man for Brentford at least. I guess the question about Tony is, does he stay at Brentford this year? I think potentially he's just focusing on the Euros at the moment and he's going to decide what he does when he returns. But, you know, there were definitely big question marks around Tony as to whether he gets a move to a big club this season. And I'd say if he stays at Brentford, he's a really good option. But if he moves to a bigger club, somewhere like Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, maybe, I don't know if that's where he's going to go, he becomes a bit more of a squad player. Definitely not the 90-minute, talisman that he is for Brentford at the moment. So just one thing to bear in mind with Tony. I do still like Mateta at that price. I'm just a little bit put off by the price because he doesn't necessarily take penalties. And yes, he had a great run at the end of last season, but it's only a short sort of run. Tony is a proven Premier League goalscorer over multiple seasons, whereas Mateta kind of had a really good 6 months at the back end of last season. So you've got more sort of to trust in with Tony. But yeah, both of these guys I think will be fine additions to your team. Okay then, to round things off, some exciting players. Bruno Fernandes, 8.5 million, got 19 attacking returns last season from 35 starts. He actually had quite a slow start to his season as well. Obviously on penalties for Man United, 0.58 expected returns per 90. Really good stats there for him. We're talking about Man United. I have a feeling they're going to improve going into next season. I mean, it's not like they weren't very good last season, right? So improving is quite easy. But obviously we know Bruno Fernandes, the talismanic role that he plays for Man United. I've got a feeling that he improves on his total from last season. But even if he doesn't, 19 attacking returns at 8.5 million for a player that's on penalties, plays absolutely every game unless he's genuinely seriously injured. He's a fantastic option. And at 8.5 million, I think that's a pretty good price. I've always liked Jarrod Bowen in FPL because he plays every game for 90 minutes, started every Premier League game last season that he was actually fit for. And even then, he played he played when he was orange flagged, if you remember rightly, last season. 34 games, 16 goals, 6 assists, exceeded his XG total by a little bit there. But historically, Bowen is such a good finisher that he's just the kind of player that will exceed his XG total most seasons. They've got obviously Lopetegui coming in as their new manager now. Exactly what Bowen's role will be in that West Ham team is a little bit unsure, but in terms of the position he plays at least, he's definitely going to start in my mind and probably keep up that sort of 90-minute sort of talismanic role without necessarily taking penalties. I don't know, maybe with Paquetá and all the trouble he's going through with his betting allegations, etc. He was the penalty taker for West Ham, and Benrahma being the penalty taker before that. Obviously, both of those guys potentially looking like they're off. So for me, Bowen could become the penalty taker for West Ham. But even if he's not, he still managed to get 16 goals, 6 assists from 34 starts. And 7.5 million is a really good price. I've got to say, Anthony Gordon ticks all the same sort of boxes that Jarrod Bowen does. An absolute favourite of Eddie Howe. If you've seen the interview that Gary Neville did with him last season, I'd really recommend you watch it. Because if you watch that and you don't want to put him in your FPL team, I'd be really surprised. What's that? 27, attacking returns from 34 starts last season. Obviously started every game where he was available for Newcastle. And he's similar to Bowen, is the kind of player that can even start when he's flagged, right? He's one of those players that will persist even when he's got a little niggle or an injury. He's usually always available. Obviously, he's made the same number of starts as Jarrod Bowen last season in 34. And with that level of attacking returns, you've got to think he's going to be a good option next season. And with Newcastle having Southampton at home first up, he's a great option for game week 1. Now, I think 9 million is a fantastic price for Ollie Watkins. And in my mind at the moment, I've already kind of decided my front three. Tony/Mateta, Ollie Watkins and Erling Haaland, I think, is a very viable front three going into FPL next season. The guy had an absolutely outrageous season for Villa, particularly in FPL last year. You see there, what's that, 37 attacking returns in 37 starts. Absolutely incredible record for Aston Villa, and of course was England's semi-final hero in the Euros. And the guy's just come on leaps and bounds under Unai Emery for Aston Villa. His career trajectory just in general has been excellent. Started off probably 7 or 8 years ago at Weston-super-Mare, Exeter City, Brentford, and now absolutely smashing it for England and Aston Villa. An absolutely unbelievable player, and at 9 million, great value. We've got a price for Mo Salah as well, the man that made 30 attacking returns last season from just 28 starts. 12.5 million, which is in and around where he was last season. However, I think that's a really good price. The only sort of question marks that exist with him is obviously how he fits in and how he's going to play under Slot as opposed to Klopp. That's the real question mark when it comes to both Liverpool as a whole and Mo Salah, to be honest. But with the record that he's got in the Premier League and obviously FPL, there's no denying that he's going to be a great option for Liverpool next season, right? He's probably could exceed, but he's probably going to get around that total of returns. Over 1 expected returns per 90 last season. There's only 2 players in the league that manage that. The next one is coming up. But yeah, what a fantastic option he is. And 12.5 million, I think, is a reasonable price. Just a question mark as to how he will fit into the team under Slot. And to round things off, we've got a record breaker. Erling Haaland comes in at 15 million, which makes him the most expensive player in FPL history. And I'd say at that price, it actually raises the question as to whether you really want to pick him in your team. What I would suggest is maybe take a look at the fixtures in the future and decide as to whether you would captain him. I think from game week 2 onwards, he's a really good captaincy option, which makes it a hard case not to go for him. 29 starts, 27 goals, 8 assists last season, 1.12 expected returns per 90. I mentioned when talking about Mo Salah that there were only 2 players across the season that averaged over 1 expected return per 90. One of them, of course, being Salah, and the other one being Erling Haaland. He's got the Premier League goal record, could be coming for the FPL points record this season, and he is the most expensive player in FPL history. All right, and that's the end of the video. 20 players revealed in terms of their prices, obviously 1 from each team. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. I've actually managed to get this out literally 10 minutes after the final price was revealed, so I hope you can appreciate the effort that went into that. I also did a live stream earlier reacting to some of the prices that came out earlier on in the afternoon. If you're interested in checking that out, you can find that on my channel. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a like rating. Consider subscribing to the Goal to Goal channel if you enjoyed this video. We've got plenty more FPL content coming out exactly like this until the start and beyond of the season. So thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in my next video.